Hey, the last 3 days of Season 4, I grinded with some friends to make a push for Not Forgotten. I solo and duo queued up to about 2400 glory much earlier in the season. I had most of the Luna's Howl quest done, so I got that. And then I continued to 5500 with said friends. We got to 5500, and I grinded out the rest of the kills I needed for the gun, and got it on the last day. Similar to how we discussed Redrix's broadsword, we're going to talk about these guns today. Not Forgotten is basically the amped up version of Luna's Howl, but I do want to talk about both. We are mainly going to be talking about their PvP performance, but we'll talk a little PvE as well. So, Luna's Howl is the reward you get for hitting Fabled rank in competitive PvP, that's 2100 glory, and from doing the long quest associated with it. The main perk is Magnificent Howl, where upon hitting 2 headshots in a row, your next shots deal an insane amount of bonus damage until you get a kill, until you miss, that's a huge part of it, misses will remove the perk, or until the buff runs out, which is 3 seconds long. It's a 180 RPM hand cannon, meaning if you hit those 3 shots in a row, or at least 2 headshots and a body shot, or 3 headshots, whatever, you're gonna kill someone, and it's gonna be really quick. Something else you can do is get those 2 headshots to trigger the Howl bonus, and then you can 2-tap a different player since both of those shots will have the bonus damage, assuming that the buff doesn't run out. It doesn't happen very often, but it's still a nice thing to have. You've probably seen this gun in quick play, maybe even seen people clamoring for a ban of the weapon in quick play, which is ridiculous and I don't think will ever happen. You've probably been killed very quickly by this weapon. I know I have. But here's the thing. Getting Luna's Howl does not automatically make you a PvP god. Much like the broadsword, Luna's and Not Forgotten are high skill weapons, or at least higher skill than the average weapon. They are high risk, high reward, and if you're capable of consistently hitting those 3 taps, you will be rewarded. The moment you miss one of those shots, though, if you do not get that 3 tap, the gun becomes almost as powerful as the weapon Trust, which is the Gambit hand cannon. Trust has more range than Luna's Howl. This weapon will not automatically make you win every single gunfight. In fact, if you don't get that 3-tap kill, you are now likely at a disadvantage. You are not going to outgun everyone. You still need to actually hit your shots. Luna's Howl reminds me of a situation from Destiny 1, when Fatebringer was brought back as an exotic hand cannon in Year 3, and Bungie had finally reined in hand cannon range to not be cross-map on every single PvP map. Luna's Howl feels like where hand cannons should be in terms of their range, and most hand cannons are actually amongst Luna in terms of their range. However, the biggest struggle anyone will experience with Luna is that it is not Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades has 86 range. To put that in perspective, Nation of Beasts from the raid has 73, and I think that's with the Masterwork. Not Forgotten and Sunshot with Masterwork has 74, Trust has 61, Duke Mark 44 has 68, and most others have less than 50. I used to think that Luna's Howl just had really pathetic range and remembered things like Old Fashioned and Dire Promise shredding people in Year 1 of Destiny 2, until I realized that we're in a completely different era in terms of Destiny 2 PvP, and hand cannons didn't actually have that much range. They just felt like they did because other weapons couldn't compete as well. Ace of Spades is basically equal to a Destiny 1 Year 1 hand cannon. It is the pulse rifle of hand cannons. You do not need to think about your positioning in terms of range almost ever with Ace because it just maps people. With Luna, you need to consider your positioning way more if you're used to using Ace, which you probably are used to because it's an insanely good hand cannon and you'd almost be dumb not to use it. Not Forgotten is almost the same gun as Luna's Howl, slightly different recoil to get used to, but the range buff on it is very noticeable, and that is the main benefit of the weapon, the extended range. You get a lot more of that Ace of Spades style flexibility with the 180 RPM 3-tap potential, but dare I say, Ace of Spades may still be a more consistent experience. The thing that I struggle with is firing the weapon quickly. The gun fires very fast for a hand cannon, it's 180 RPM, and you want to take advantage of that by, shooting the gun fast. But you also want to make sure that you're accurate and landing those 3 taps, because just spamming the trigger is not going to do anything for you. In fact, it's actually a disadvantage. But if you're not firing fast enough, then you're just going to get killed by your opponent. Learning the gun is mostly about pacing those shots, but also firing fast enough to win. The big question is, what's better, Ace or Not Forgotten? It's really tough to answer because Ace of Spades is such a good weapon for literally everyone in the game, whereas Not Forgotten is a much higher skill weapon, but those who can get Not Forgotten in the first place are probably capable of utilizing it very well, even better than Ace. I found myself switching off of Luna's Howl when playing against high-skill players using Not Forgotten because I just couldn't 3-tap people consistently, or because they had Not Forgotten and they just outranged me. So I would swap to Ace to outrange Not Forgotten and intentionally require myself to pace my shots much slower, giving me better accuracy through aim. This isn't to say that I won every single gunfight with Ace, but my success rate was higher against Not Forgotten when I was using Ace versus using Luna's Howl. I know the Ace ranges and where I can engage people on certain maps, the pacing of the gun and firing it, whereas with Luna and Not Forgotten, I'm still learning. So who should chase this weapon? I'll tell you this. While Luna and Not Forgotten are very serviceable PvE weapons, they are not the best by any stretch of the imagination. Upper tier? Maybe, but there are certainly other weapons out there that will provide just as good of a performance, if not better to considerably better. The main benefit of these guns in PvE is that they can demolish upper tier enemies with the bonus damage shots that they can get. Is that good? Yeah, it's definitely not a bad thing to have, but it's not overwhelmingly powerful that you need to have it. If you are an enthusiastic PvE player who doesn't really delve into PvP too often, the effort you need to put into getting Not Forgotten is far too great to be worth getting, and I'd probably put Luna's Howl into that category as well, although it is much easier. If you're an avid PvP player, you probably already have the answer to this question. If you're good enough to get it, you're probably gonna go get it, whether it's to use it or have it as a trophy. As for any thoughts on competitive play as it is right now, or at least as it was in Season 4, we'll probably save that for another time, but I will say this. Please, Bungie, please get rid of the quest that requires people to play 2 competitive games when they first get the game. I was at 5100 glory, and I played against a level 7 and a level 20. That in itself is another huge problem, but we'll talk about that another time. Maybe. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.